Heather.
Hi there. I'm coming. Hi.
How's it going, young lady?
Good. How are you doing over there?
I'm doing okay. It's okay. There's a situation. But anyway,
I,
we've been heavy in Chicago, well, in the western suburbs in Chicago.
oh my goodness.
Yes, yes. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. This is my second podcast today, so I'm on a roll.
Oh, where was the other one? What time was the other one? Earlier the day?
Yeah, earlier this morning.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, earlier this morning. So now I'm here,
All right.
ready
Well,
to rock and roll.
yes, yes. Let's get started. Let's get started. And I'm gonna come. We're gonna do. We're gonna stay on Zoom, and then we're gonna basically it's gonna be recorded for later on. So that's how we're gonna do it. Okay. But
Yeah,
anyway,
because
yes,
she had said that you guys had some problems with live stream before.
yeah, yeah, yeah. The air quality has diminished in this particular area. I don't know why, but it has. But anyway, but it's just so good to see you. Let's get started. Let's get
Yay.
started. Let me see. I think everything is in place. We're recording now. Yeah, we are recording now. So we're doing what we need to do. But anyway, I just welcome a good friend of mine since I've met her before. Heather Criswell, and she's here on the Teacher Society. My name is Aurelia Davis, the educator's educator. Don't know a lot about me. I was a former educator for Chicago Public Schools. I did over 31 years, and after retirement in 2012, I just could not let my passion go. So I have been mentoring, and I have been doing lives and basically supporting teachers that are still in the profession, working on different boards, trying to just make education a better situation in every neighborhood. Okay. So we're going to be I've been talking to some individuals that have the same passion as me, and we just want to share their information and get them out there so that they can help somebody else. Okay. So this is Heather Criswell, and Heather is an author and a force of nature. I like that. Boasts two groundbreaking books, How to Raise a Happy Child and Be Happy Too, and Wise Talk from the Other Side. At 21, she founded a revolutionary school, empowering over 30,000 children in her 35-year career. Beyond education, she champions holistic well-being, establishing a wellness center, and as that says, Wise Inside?
Yes, wise
Wise
inside.
Inside. Okay, I like that name. Now, as a founder of the Conversation Academy, Heather coaches, speaks, and trains on navigating difficult conversations, gracefully eradicating conflict, and fostering understanding. Conversations to her are transformative acts of love, shaping lives and communities with her belief in love-infused dialect. Heather thrives to change the world one conversation at a time, and I want to tell you about her awards. She was the winner of the Mom's Choice Award honoring excellence and the winner of Creative Child Award Book of the Year 2013. And congratulations to you.
Well, thank
Congratulations.
you. Thank you so much for that. That's so beautiful. And thank you for
Oh,
having me. And
you're welcome. So
you know,
let's get into it. Tell me about your program. Tell me about what you're doing out here.
well, I want to say first and foremost, thank you so much for what you're doing on this planet, that you retired and got back in it.
Yeah.
And I don't know a lot of people that actually do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was me.
So I'm so grateful because we need you on this planet to help us with this situation that we have with our education.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a firm believer in that. I have been working with some micro schools and other alternative education programs for kids because really it's a struggle. And I'm located in Las Vegas. The argument is we're 49th or 50th in the nation. It doesn't really matter.
It doesn't because we're all up and down. That's what it is. It's up
Yeah.
and down field.
And between 49 and 50 is not that big a deal.
No.
Like, so we definitely have a struggle here. And My take on all of it on my end is I owned a preschool for many years, for 10 years. Just to clarify, that 30,000 wasn't my school in particular. That was a typo on that on my end.
Okay.
But it was 30,000 kids altogether.
Okay.
Actually, more than that over
That's
time.
okay.
But my school was early childhood. We had from 9 months to 6 years in my school. In the summers, we also had their siblings that were older as well. And this was in 1995. So almost 30 years ago. I don't know how that's possible. Like, but nonetheless, I am in the space now where I am really doing my best to help these kids communicate, because what we're experiencing here in Las Vegas is not only bullying, which I think bullying is taken to the next level in this generation. We overuse the word bullying. We use that for disagreements, you know, arguments, frustration. They called you a name. That's not technically bullying. Bullying is something that happens repeatedly over and over again. And so we've had quite a bit of experience over here with the bullying situation. Of course, with the internet and all the things that are coming online for our kids on phones, social media, it's just amplified. And what I've noticed is that kids are really struggling to have a conversation, especially after COVID, when we had our faces in masks the whole time. They couldn't see facial expressions. They couldn't understand dialects and tones. And quite frankly, just a lot of people weren't talking. I mean, standing in a grocery store, I generally strike up some sort of funny conversation, you know? And we weren't doing that. So a generation of kids have been raised on the internet and without conversation. And so consequently, what we're seeing is kids don't know how to communicate with each other. Their social emotional intelligence has gone down into the drain. Their confidence, their enthusiasm for life is on the struggle bus. And what I've realized is that if we can get our kids to start talking and actually giving them the skills to have those communication conversations, it can eliminate conflict in the classroom. It can eliminate conflict between teachers. One of my goddaughter in particular, she was in a classroom, in a high school classroom, and she went up to the teacher and she said, "Are there video cameras in this classroom?" And the teacher's like, "No, why?" And she's like, "Oh, never mind." And she went back over to her friend. Well, her teacher took that as a threat and sent her to the principal's office and the dean's office to figure out, like, if she was threatening the classroom to injure anybody in the classroom, when she simply was arguing with her friend. And she said, "I didn't say that. I'm going to see if there's cameras here to show you that I didn't say that." And so we're missing the mark on communication with ourselves, with our children, with children to administration. And I understand there's a lot of things that are happening in schools now. And I do believe that with a conversation, anything can change in the minute. If the teacher would have said, "Hey, I'm curious, what's up with the idea of cameras?" And she said, "Oh, never mind. No, I really need to hear, like, what's going on? Are you okay?" Asked us some simple questions, it would have detoured this whole hysteria for nothing. And that happens in the classroom as well for students as young as kindergarten, first grade. And that's what I'm working on right now. It's basically called the conversation station. It's a space where kids can come and have a conversation. So if a child is having a disagreement or an argument with a friend in the classroom, or just annoyed with each other, the teacher can simply say, "Hey, go to the conversation station, have a conversation. If you need my help, let me know." Now we're empowering them to have those conversations for themselves and empowering them with the skills and tools with this little conversation station that I've created that they can also use those throughout their life. And so now we can have conversations about politics. Now we can have conversations about race, religion, sexuality, whatever that is in our world that's happening right now. We as adults have that skill set from get-go because we're not taught how to have a conversation. We model it, we show it, but there's not concrete skills that I need to align myself. I need to make sure that I'm in alignment. I need to ask myself what I'm wanting. I need to check my energy before I have this conversation. And those are the skill sets that we need to transfer to our children, especially now. Because more now than ever, they need these skills. We have given them these things called phones and expecting them to understand how it all works. And just the etiquette alone for phones is hard to explain. You know, I have a young son and we've given him a very, very short leash with a phone. He doesn't have social media, all of that stuff. He's 13, but he does have the ability to have a phone call or a text to specific family members that we have and a couple of his friends. And he'll blow somebody's phone up. And he'll just keep talking and just keep asking. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you can't do this. Like, this is not how this works. So, you know, we have a whole etiquette of phones that we also have to bring into the situation. But before that, before we can have any of that, these kids need to be able to talk to each other and express themselves and know that they're safe doing that.
Yes. That's just so true. And you know what? And I think the last time we talked together, I mentioned how even in the preschools, how the babies have been given these items. You know, they're born, they drink milk, and then they get a cell phone or they get something to play with, and they're sitting in these carts as the mom is rolling them down through an aisle in Walmart or whatever, and they are on these. And so there's no back and forth. There's no communication back and forth. They are looking and modeling what they see. They're looking and modeling what they see, but there's no conversation. So that's when you turn around and you're looking at, I have quite a few friends that are in preschools, and what they have in these preschools are biters because the children do not know how to talk. They don't know how to talk. So she told me, one of my friends told me, a professor at a college told me, she said, if they don't know how to talk and there's no one talking to them, and let's look at some of the, the parental situations nobody's talking to them, then immediately that's how they're going to express themselves by biting.
Absolutely. And I will tell you, I had my fair share of biters, but I've never even thought about that. But I bet you there's a lot more biters in 2024 than there was in 1995. I bet you. I mean, I had a handful over 10 years. I had a handful of biters, they were a handful of them. And I think a lot of them just couldn't actually verbalize at early ages, but and again, I am not interested in, I'm not in a space of judging a parent for putting their kid on this space. I get it. I'm tired. I am exhausted as a parent. I'm exhausted. And with that being said, I also say that, look, we're going to pay on the front end, or we can invest on the front end or pay on the back end. Like, that's what can happen here, because if we choose to keep doing this and putting our kids in front of these screens, they're not witnessing any kind of conversations. They're not witnessing disagreements with strangers. And how do we handle that? And how do we move through life with people that don't necessarily agree with us, or people that cut us off, or people that are unkind? All of these things are important to practice. And I'd rather practice it in kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, up until high school. I'd rather practice it under the guidance of teachers and parents, so that when they go out in the real world, they're not just, hit with a blow dryer of like, oh my gosh, what is going on here? Like, what is this world?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it varies, and like you said before, it's yes, because a lot of times, unfortunately, our children are not hearing the human voice. It's an animated voice coming through a machine, and if it's an
Yes.
animated voice, you don't know what mom, because unfortunately, and we're looking at the generations that are in front of us now. You have mom that might be about 17. Her mother may be about 31. And then, of
Mm-hmm.
course, her mother may be about 39. So you really haven't had any longevity as far as parenting skills in place, which is why your book is good.
Yes.
The parenting skills being in place and knowing what to do with children, because all of this is part of the development of children as to how they grow. And those milestones, cannot be skipped. You can't,
No.
so you look at a child and say, oh my goodness, he's walking at 2 and 3, but that doesn't necessarily mean there's some spaces in between that still have to be nurtured or,
Yep.
built up and so on and so forth. So tell me, how does this Conversation Academy works? What happens in your Conversation Academy?
So the Conversation Academy is basically a place for me to help people have conversations that change their life. The aspect of the conversation station is basically, it's a space in a classroom where the kids can come, and I created a kind of wall chart for them where I can kind of hold it up, where they can actually go and see. They can have a conversation with themselves. It's step 1, 2, and 3. They take the crystal heart and put it up against their heart. And that's basically a space for them to self-regulate, take some deep breaths, get clear of what's going on here. Because again, we have a bunch of kids that don't know how to self-regulate. They don't know how to calm themselves down. And we as parents have, and I've watched parents over generations, right? So I've been doing this since 1989. I've been working with children. And what I will tell you is, as much as we all don't want our children to hurt and feel sad and be upset, it is important for them to hurt and be sad and feel upset.
So
It's important, to have those feelings, and what do I do with it? And instead of us fixing it for them or sitting with them every single minute of every single day to get them through it. That's really what I wanted them to be able to do, is be empowered to go to the conversation station, self-regulate. Then they pull a card, and it can be any card. The cards are alphabetical, A through Z, uppercase and lowercase. So this one in particular is grouchy. And so we talk about, were we feeling grouchy today? We ask the questions, we give some, it's okay to feel grouchy. What do you do when you feel grouchy? How can you share that with somebody? Is there a time when you felt grouchy? And so the children can do this by themselves if they just need to have a conversation with themselves, or they can do it with each other. And then they have, the last step is to hold the brain to your brain and ask, what am I wanting right now? Like, what am I wanting? I'm wanting you to stop screaming at me, or I'm wanting you, I'm wanting to get along with you. Then we ask our heart, what's the energy that we're bringing to it? Are we mad? Are we sad? Are we happy? Are we excited? Are we feeling jealous about a friend? And then the last one is, how do you let your light shine? How do you let your light shine on this planet? How do you show up for yourself first, and then your friends and family and everybody else? Because if we don't show up for ourselves first, we can't be anything for other people. And when we're clear and we're true to ourselves, we can shine so bright on this planet and be that beacon of light for other people to rise up and to remind them to rise up. Yeah. So the conversation station is a space for these kids. And funny enough, as I've been doing, I'm in beta testing right now. And as I've been doing it, I had a family that actually wanted it for their home. So I'm thinking about maybe doing like a home version, pretty similar, but so that we can have these experiences at home too. Because again, what I can tell you is, it doesn't take hours to connect with our children. It takes minutes, minutes. And that 5 minutes at the end of the night where you do the conversation station together, or read a book together, or write a gratitude journal together, or just say, hey, you know, what went well today? What didn't go so well today? That 5 minutes literally changes the trajectory of their lives. They have a bonded moment. They have a moment with you. They have that memory of you taking the time, because I am guilty of it. I work online. My business is online and in public. So I'm on this thing a lot.
Yeah,
A lot.
me too.
And I feel awful about it. And it's also the way our world works now. So, you know, I have to compensate in other ways. And to your point, if we just could have these conversations with our kids, we just decided, look, we're not going to have cell phones at the dinner table. That's just our family rule. And that's what we've done in our family. We don't have cell phones at the dinner table. Now, what I will tell you is, if my husband gets a buzz, because again, he is the major CEO of a company right now. So if he gets a buzz, then he'll say, hey, I have to excuse myself for a minute, and he'll leave the dinner table and come back, you know. But again, that's emergency situation type thing. But when we set these rules, if you will, or these parameters or guidelines for us as a family, then we give our kids the opportunity to have these conversations later on in life, because we are going to need these conversations now more than ever. It's getting sticky in our country. It's getting sticky. And people are polarizing when we need to come together as a community. And that's what you're doing with all of the schools that you're involved with, is bringing the community together. And we need to be able to have those skills to have those conversations.
What about within so basically you take the tool into the classroom, and do you do training with the teacher and the students themselves? And is it embraced at a particular grade level, or basically per classroom who say they need it? And where do you find it more so, in the younger grades or the older grades?
Well, that's all great questions. All great questions. You know, we have been testing it with all ages. What I will say is kindergarten is a little bit of a struggle, but because of reading, because they need to be able to read the cards. With that being said, they could get some help with that. But what I do is go in and I actually train the teachers and the staff and administration first and foremost, then go into the classroom and have a training session. Because if we have this culture of conversation in the classroom and in administration and between our teachers, that carries on to a culture of conversation with our parents, with our community. So we need to have this culture. You know, my son went to a school and they said, you know, we're all about kindness. Kindness, kindness, kindness. We do kindness shout outs, and we say that Johnny opened the door for somebody. And, you know, we had the worst experience at that school. And I will tell you why, because their focus was on kindness. And it was all about the acts of kindness instead of the culture of kindness.
Wow, there you go.
That's different.
That's it.
It's different. Acts of kindness are not the same as a culture of kindness.
That's it.
And that's where I really want to come in and be like, the culture of kindness is that we entertain a conversation with each other when we feel disputes between each other, or conflict, or misunderstandings, or not understanding altogether. We need to have these cultures of kindness. And that, I believe, stems from conversations, because without us connecting, it's really hard to be kind to each other all the time without connection.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And like you said before, you're the unfortunate thing is that you have children in a classroom, and my model used to be, I didn't give birth to them. Here to work with them. I love them all, but I didn't give birth. So
yes,
basically, those kids coming into your classroom, you really have to sort of not separate, but basically get to know each child. And then
yes,
that's where the training comes in with our teachers. That comes in with our teachers that basically a good educator does not just go in driving education.
No.
Those are individuals, those are human beings, and you have to find exactly where they're coming from. And if you have about 10 to 15, that's 10 or 15 different homes,
Yep.
and 10 or 15 different personalities, because a lot of times whatever happens at home is not necessarily carried to the classroom. So I had to learn how to develop personalities within my classroom. And what you said before, the culture, yes, I did have a culture going on. And I started that culture with day one. The very good thing about my particular class, I had about 10 or 15 different ethnic groups,
Yes.
just a little bit of everybody, it was a multicultural school. And the thing is that we also took on the whole gist of the building itself, so I just was not in my particular classroom, but I basically was able to say I had 632 children, because
Yes.
I basically was the teacher of the kindergartners all the way to the 8th grade. So when you're looking at that building itself has to embrace what you're doing and take it on and whatever. And the more training you do, I guess it has to be something that they buy into, but as they see it being transformed and being, embraced and whatever, I believe that it can really do what you need it to do. So let me ask you,
Well,
but
yeah.
what about active listening? How do you bring that into, or is that part of the conversation station also?
That's a really good question. And the idea behind the conversation station is really about getting clarity for ourselves.
Okay.
And I think what I can tell you from my experiences happened is that I haven't focused on active listening. And what's interesting about it is they naturally do it. It's very interesting because when the kids are completely dialed in, and to answer your question back a little bit too, we've tested this for first grade through high school. Sweet spot, second, third grade was a real sweet spot. They really, really loved it. Middle school, they were kind of cocky about it and kind of sassy about it, but they liked it deep down inside. And then high school, shockingly enough, high schoolers, I said, well, this is really geared for the younger kids. And they said, no, we'd like to have this. And they said, I wish my mom and dad would have talked to me like this, because they just asked me stupid questions like, how was your day? Or what would you get on that test score? Or, like, what are you doing? And, we want meaningful conversations. And I was like, interesting. So, what I will say is naturally, these kids just started listening to each other. And I didn't have to ask, I didn't have to provoke, I didn't have to prompt. They would ask a question, and they would ask a question like, were you angry today? And the kid would go, yeah, I had kind of a rough day because of this. And they're like, really? And they were curious. And so I think what happens is we don't actually have to teach the kids active listening because they're curious.
Okay.
I think that as adults, we have to teach active listening because we're not so curious anymore. Like, we're like, yeah. Anyway, I want to tell you this, but kids, they have a natural curiosity. And that's what was interesting. And, thank you for bringing that up, because I never really put words to it, but I just kept saying, like, I had to trust my gut that it was really about each one being empowered to tell their story. And they naturally kind of like to hear the story. Like the high schoolers, the one girl, she pulled the letter I for ignored. And she's like, yeah, I feel ignored when you guys are at lunch because you guys just kind of, and she goes, you always go outside when you're at lunch. And she's like, yeah, I go outside because I don't feel like you guys want to be with me. You just ignore me. And she's like, that's not true. We want you there. And so they had this moment of beauty where it was like a total misunderstanding. And yet this girl over here is feeling ignored when this girl's like, we don't know why you're going outside, but okay, and when they actually had a conversation about it, it mended that fence so that the gate could open where we could come back and forth with each other. Right.
Yeah.
And that's really what I am excited about this for not just for kids in schools, but around the world, because if we can help this generation, we can turn this ship around of the incredible discord that I see out there, and it's painful for me to watch, because a lot of times I see the misunderstanding. As somebody that's been doing conversations all her life, I see the misunderstanding, I see the miss, and yet it's too far gone. They're both so upset that you can't bring it back. So I'm hoping that this gives kids the opportunity. And truth be told, I hear teachers, I hear you loud and clear. There's not one more thing that they need to do in the classroom. And if you did this one thing in the classroom, I promise that the classroom would be less chaotic, less confrontational, less angst about the day. And I see teachers wasting so much time on ridiculousness. And I think that that's where, from my experience as a teacher and also experience talking to teachers, they just get exhausted. And if we could give the kids a tool to kind of work these out, go to the conversation station, have a chat. If you have a problem, let me know. I'm happy to help out. But we educate them in that space so that it just becomes automatic. And then the kids just naturally go. Some of the kids at the last school I was at, they were coming in early to do the conversation station.
Oh, nice. That's great. That's good. That's good.
And going home and telling their parents about it, which is huge. That's monumental. Like, I never expected them to tell their parents about it. And the parents came back and said, "What's this conversation station all about?" And the kids were like, one boy, he showed up early to school. He's like, "I want to do the conversation station." Because as much as we want them to talk, they want to talk. We often don't have the time for them to talk. We don't have the space for them to talk. We don't have the patience for them to talk. And so if we can't always give that as educators, as parents, as teachers, as administration, as an aunt, an uncle, then we need to give them the opportunity to have those conversations with their peers so that they can at least get that information out. Two of them, both of them came together, and one of the boys really liked the girl, and he was being very unkind and talking badly to her, but he actually deep down inside liked her. And that came out in the conversation. He's like, "I really do like you." And she's like, "What? You're so mean to me." And he's like, "I know, but I'm just trying to get your attention."
That's how I show it.
And rewind back in 1979, 1980, when I was in school, and the same kid was so mean to me and legitimately bullied me my entire school years. Relentless of being an overweight kid. And granted, it was in 1980s. There weren't a lot of overweight children back then. So I will say that, but nonetheless, he was ruthless. And let me tell you, fast forward, go to his Facebook, he married an overweight blonde girl. I just can't make it up.
You can't make anything out of that.
I just can't make it up. Now, if he would have had that conversation with me back then, I could have been like, "Oh, okay, you like me." And really just not had a lifetime of experience of bullying, which I will say it served me in my own way. But that being said, it would have been nice if he just said, "Hey, I kind of like you."
And you know what? That's what we're dealing with. And you talking about even back in like the 80s and the 90s and whatever, even the songs that was playing on the radio, we knew what they were because it was crystal clear as to what they were saying. So let me ask you this. So you put the tool to the classroom. So you do some outside coaching also with families and different things like that, or how does the business work?
Well, that is coming up, to work with the PTAs in that space to do some sort of community community workshops, if you will, so that the parents could come to a workshop and actually have that.
Yeah.
I also, have my book, How to Raise a Happy Child and Be Happy Too, which is basically, it's a manuscript for communication with our children. And there's scripts, I think over 30 scripts in the back of how to have conversations about Santa, how to have conversations about lying, how to stealing, all of those kind of things
Everything covered.
to really teach people how to have these conversations where you leave feeling good too. That's the idea behind and be happy too. I'm not just here to be raising a happy child or a child that's resilient or a child. It's for me to be resilient and for me to be happy too.
Yes.
We're co-creating in this experience. We're here together. Like we're in this. It's Team Criswell at our house,
There you go.
like,
Great, great.
like,
Yeah.
so, but sometimes, to your point, there have been generations of families that haven't grown up with these skill sets and they just don't know what to do. I have some close family friends that have been in the system, the welfare system, and when you were talking about earlier, they just didn't have the skill sets. And it's not for the lack of the mom wanting to know, it's just she didn't know what to do or say, because her experience was, being thrown out. Her experience was being beat. Her experience was very different than that's what she wanted to give her children, but she just didn't have the skill set for it. So Raise a Happy Child is a beautiful book to help people on that path. And honestly, I had a lady, she emailed me and she said, I just love your book. I love everything about it. I'm doing it with my kids. I feel so good as a parent. I'm so thankful. And I'm like, I'm so glad. How did you find out about the book? And she said, well, my husband is a steward. I think they call him stewards on United Emirates. And that's the airline for United Emirates. And he had a woman sitting in the front seat. And her 3-year-old son was sitting next to her. And he's like, they were flying to Dubai. And he's like, your son is amazing. What's the secret? We're about to have a child. And she said, it's this book, How to Raise a Happy Child and Be Happy Too. And I about fell out of my chair. I was like, wait a minute, our book is on an airline, a United Emirates flight and, to Dubai. And she said, my husband got the book right away. We started reading it. And, this is where I say the power of a conversation, one conversation on that airplane helped that family feel good about coming into parenthood, because it's scary. I've worked with over 30,000 kids and my child has brought me to my knees because I'm like, oh, I thought I knew what I was doing here, but okay, well, let's pivot, and so one conversation can change everything, and it changed their lives. It changed my life to not give up, because anybody that has written a book knows you don't make millions off of books.
No.
Unless you're like, highly publicized, Tony Robbins,
all of those. Yeah.
all of those people, so it gave me the strength to keep going too. But that conversation changed everything. And that's where it's really important for us to keep the art of conversation. We've got AI coming up right now, and AI, it's no joke.
And I don't even know what that looks like, but I'm afraid. I'm a little afraid.
And this is where we need to remember that, because there will be a time where we look at a video and we won't know if it's true or not.
Wow.
And so we're going to have conversations in person with people to say, hey, did you see this? Like, what are you thinking? What's your thoughts on that? We're going to have to talk to each other more, which is actually why I'm grateful for AI, because it's going to prove that we need to talk to each other more.
Yes, yes. Well, I ordered the book. I'll be getting it tomorrow. And I'm going to definitely share it with as many people, because I do have, even though I'm a grandmother, I do have some friends. You know what? It's not really, some of my daughter's friends are at that parent stage, and they basically say, what do I do with
What do I
Oh,
do?
yes, yes. And so I'm not putting on them what I was told, because my mom raised five girls. Five girls. It was her and my dad. It was five girls. And my mother trying to keep those five girls together. Oh boy. So,
Yes.
but in the meantime, it was a hit and miss, but she took on each day separately. She basically gave us a goals in life, and whether we wanted, she gave us a family goal as to, but
Yes.
she realized that each particular child was going to have their own route as to where they were going to go and what they were going to do. And so here I sit as an educator, and then I have some other sisters that are in some very good professions. And it comes down to the point, where when I looked at my daughter and I was able to do what I was able to do with her, and now she has my grandson, and I'm gonna be honest, Heather, I sit back and I just crack. he, he takes some eyes and, oh, okay.
Yep.
Why are you laughing? Why are you? Well, it's funny to me.
Yep.
Yeah, but one thing about it, and I have always believed, I have always been a talker. So when I went into my classroom, I was talking. I was talking consistently. I mean, consistent talking. I wanted the children, my students, to hear my voice. I wanted them to hear my voice at different levels, how I felt about different things, surprise, and so on and so forth. And so when we talk about, because social emotional learning was not in place when I was teaching, okay? It was not in
Yes.
place. And so when I'm hearing more about the social emotional learning now, what it does is it takes me to the area where if I was in a classroom now, and with the children coming off the pandemic and with technology sort of taking over their lives, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it's basically taking over their lives. And so when I would start, if I was to start my classroom and go into my classroom today or this morning, I would want your conversation station. And I would let my children go to that particular station because I would need to know exactly who I was working with today. Children go home on Friday and you don't know what has happened to them over the weekend. Just so many different things. I was looking on your website. We're talking about the children after the pandemic. How many of those children that lost loved ones and were not still able to, to talk about it and grieve properly? Those things are still on their minds. And either it'll bring out anger or frustration, or it basically just shuts them down. And so we as educators, we have to know how to reach that child. So that conversation station is good. You need to make one for the house.
That's what I'm working on. That's what I'm working on because
Good.
there's value in it. And,
It is.
I think that naturally back in the day, I think that teachers weren't as, now you would speak to it more than I would know, but they weren't as pressured with the curriculums and the test scores and the, rankings and all the things that I think back then that they were just teaching. Like, I just remember my teachers teaching and really participating with me, where I feel this stress level with teachers. And that's where I want to make sure with the conversation station, it's not just one more thing to do, right? That it's actually something that's going to enhance your classroom and enhance your life as a teacher. And also give you a glimpse in, because when you're overhearing it, if I was in the classroom, I would have it near me wherever I was, like consistently where I was around my desk or where I stood or whatever, so that I could overhear these conversations. Because you might just hear that, one of the conversations was, I don't like it when that kid says my mom died, because his mom had just passed away. And, these kind of things where you get a heads up through their conversation that you can be aware of what you're looking at now, so that misunderstandings don't happen, so that we're not writing kids up and sending them to the dean and all the things that can be just completely sidestepped, and realize that this kid's going through some trauma right now. He just lost his mother.
Yes.
He just lost his mother. And we can step up as teachers and educators and administration and parents and say, we're going to give him a little bit of grace here. And we're going to give him a little bit more love today, because his mom's gone. And you know what? when I lost my mom on this planet, it was one of the most painful things that has ever happened in my life and continues to be one of the most painful things.
Mhm.
So to your point, which I loved, we don't know what happens on the weekend.
No.
We don't know what happens at night. We
Mhm.
don't know. And so I think that that is a beautiful point. And again, this is a tool for teachers to support them, not to give them one more thing to do.
Exactly.
I honor the teachers that are in the classrooms now because I see what's happening and it's brutal. And their whole agenda is to get tests and scores and the homework and, and try and do what they actually signed up to do, which is teach.
You think?
And deal with behaviors. And
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking neurodiversity is happening in the classroom now. So behaviors are skyrocketing.
Mhm.
And, teachers are like, what do I do with this? What do I do with this?
Mhm.
And we're looking at, they were saying, we're saying by like 2030 that there would be more neurodiverse kids than neurotypical kids.
Mm.
And that is really challenging, really challenging. And I can't even fathom that in the classroom. So if we can start, and I think, again, a lot of this is also misdiagnosed. I think a lot of it is overdiagnosed too, that I think some of these kids just need more attention, truth be told.
Yeah. It's that type of thing. Us taking, and that's why educators are so important, because what that parent is not able to do, and a lot of times it's not their fault, what they're not able to do if they're out working and trying to, support their homes and so forth. What ends up happening is that we having them those 6 hours, we have to take up the slack. We end up taking
Yep.
up the slack. We end up taking up the slack. And the thing about it's more than anything else. I think I have been telling my teachers more than anything else. I said, I know this is like a heavy burden, but you cannot take it for granted. The child that you have in front of you, you can't take it for granted that every child is coming from a nurturing environment. You can't take it for granted that every child has a breakfast, and I'm looking basically in the inner city, which is a lot out there, and
Yes.
so we cannot take it for granted what the children have. And it has basically gotten back to the powers that be, that basically your school on this side of town may not look like the school on that side of town. And so how can you measure them as far as saying whether this school is not doing well and that school is, but if this school is not doing well, then get the conversation station in your school. So
Yes.
it's
Yes. Yes. I mean, listen, teachers are the backbone of our children's memories. And I can tell you in second grade, Miss Simpson, I was failing math. I was a straight A student, couldn't get word problems, didn't understand it, didn't care. I was like, when she said Johnny has 5 apples and Susan has 3, and takes 3 away, how much does Johnny have? And I'd be like, well, why is Johnny giving her the apples? And my teacher's like, no,
that's not it.
like, and I'm like, she shouldn't even take the apples from him. Really, it's just,
Yes, that's
like,
that was our logic.
they were just like, we're not talking about any of that. And, they could have shut me down very easily and just written me off as like, she's never going to get it. She's stupid, whatever. I could have taken that as I was stupid. Miss Simpson knew better. She said, that's interesting, Heather. She goes, well, here's what I will tell you. We're not going to talk about actually Johnny and Susan. We're just going to talk about the numbers. And she said, I'm going to send some problems home with you for your mom to do with you. And my mom and dad did them with me. And I argued with them about, well, why would he even take that bushel? And my parents are like, that's enough, because I was raised in the South and in the 70s and 80s. And they'd be like, that's enough, Heather Renee. That's enough. Just subtract 5 minus 3. That's it. And I'm like, okay. So I learned how to do, problem solving. But Miss Simpson is the one that saw that I was not dumb. I was not being disrespectful. I legitimately had the question of why would he do that to her? And Where now I could see that very easily being, oh, you're being disrespectful, you're being sassy, you're being rude, you know, whatever that is, because we just, we're in a very quick society now, quick, where back then it was much slower.
Right.
Much slower. Pace was much slower. And I'm not saying that we should go back to that. I don't think it's possible. But I think that we need to adapt to that,
Yes.
and to bring some of the skill sets that we have had along the way back up to current times. And that's what I'm hoping the conversation station does, is bring that skill set back, so where the teacher knows Heather enough that she's not being sassy. She actually is just that kind of person. She's going to be some sociology major, psychology major. She's going to work with children and try and figure them out, you know, all the things, right? That we can actually look at our kids and see them for the greatness that they are,
And
see them for the light that they are.
And they are so much smarter today than they have ever been. We just have to bring it out and build the whole child. Build the whole
child. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes, this has been fun. I got the book coming tomorrow. I'm going to read it. And why don't you put your information down in the chat?
Okay.
Okay. And we're going to take it from there. But this has been, and I know this is not going to be the last time we talk together.
Well, I'm following you now. I'm following you, what you're doing over there, because I literally, I just put my website, heathercriswell.com. You can find
that'll be
everything
great.
there.
Yeah.
But I am loving, I just adore you. From the minute I met you, I was like, I told my friends, I'm like, I just love her. Like, because you're just going full steam ahead with supporting these. It's not just our children, it's our teachers, it's our administration, it's our parents, it's our communities. And that's what you're doing, is supporting our communities.
Put it together. Because
Yes.
because unfortunately things have sort of got fragmented and broken apart and whatever, and just pulling. And that's why I sit on a couple of the boards and whatever. And I was telling somebody, I said, I don't really have a fear about losing a job, because I don't work for them anymore.
That's right.
It's the type of thing where I am just interested, and I'm so, for those children that end up being missed out and left out. This is what this is for, what you do and what I do, what those children that are being left out, though we have to go back and grab, because there's more of them than it is the ones that had it.
Yes. And they are brilliant minds and brilliant souls, and they have come on this planet for a purpose. They matter. They are here on purpose, and it is our job to steward them into a beautiful life that is waiting for them. Like, and I don't take that lightly. And it's exhausting. I mean, I sold my school because I got exhausted. That's why I sold my school. I was exhausted. You know, I stopped doing things online because I was tired, and, you know, the grind of it. Even marketing my book was just hard. And then I just got this idea where I was like, okay, I'm just going to do podcasts, because I didn't want to do my own podcast. I started one, and then I was like, I just like talking more than asking.
Yes. The back and forth, and the sharing and the networking that we do.
And that's the point, is that now I see beautiful people out there, and it gives me hope, because we get in these Instagram feeds and Facebook feeds of doom and gloom, but there are beautiful people out here doing hard work and showing up every single day for our kids and for each other. And you are one of those people that has shown up. And I am so grateful for that. Truly.
You so much. We're friends to the end now. This is gonna last. This is gonna last good. Now, what we're gonna do is I wanted to know, okay, how, with what you're doing, how have you been able to do any networking and taking what you have into other states?
So no, I have strictly been in Nevada. I have another test run that I'm doing with a big school, very big school. So I am going to do one more beta test so that I can actually get statistics, because again, we're in this world now where I can't just walk in and say it's going to help you. You know, school districts want to see 30% retention, 30% less, you know, missing school, you know, attendance, grade scores. They want to see all that. So I'm going to get the data to support that, so that I can walk in and say, hey, 25% less conflict in the classroom, 70% more attendance in the classroom, you know, those kind of things that I can rattle that off. Test scores improved, you know, those kind of things that I can rattle off so that I can eventually go out into other states and really market it. And I'm entertaining some investors too right now that are interested in maybe investing, just to bring the capital up to get it going faster.
Yeah.
Because, you know, just bootlegging and, you know, getting this off the ground, it's quite the work. But again, I will do this until the day I die. I will stand for our children until the day I die. I will stand in their greatness. I will preach that they matter and that they're here on purpose and that we are all doing our best. And sometimes we just need to up our game. And there are people in our lives that are helping us up our game. You're helping me up my game right now, because I was like, oh, I want to quit.
Can't quit.
This is hard.
We have too much to do. We have some other things to do.
But if you don't quit, like, that gives me reason. Well, she's not quitting. I'm not quitting. Like,
still much to do. Still much to do.
So we show up for each other, you know?
Yeah. Well, you know what this is, and I wish you tremendous success. I'm going to keep up with you to see how those betas are going and whatever like that, you know, because it is needed everywhere. You know, one thing that I say about the pandemic is this sort of a evil, you know, nice thought. It put every school district on the same level.
Yep.
It put every school district, because everybody was out. So you didn't really have the measuring, this is better than that, and that state is better than this state. It put everybody on the same level. So everybody is at this point where they are boosting and pushing back to get, you know, to get children where they are. And some of them are looking at, say, so if we put them on, if we put them on computers and laptops, what happened to everything that we taught? It was basically just on the level, you know, it was just on the surface. That's what I'm trying to say. But nothing was innate. So if these children were having issue with conversations and things like that, that when pandemic came, that just sort of went out the window. Everyone is starting all over. So let's see how, when we have a child in front of us and we're teaching this child, how this child, if the child is in the right mindset, how they can retain what they're being taught, how they can be, but they have to be in the right mindset and the right emotional being in order for them to be able to retain, because that's going to be first on their agenda, instead of what I'm going through, or I'm being bullied, or I don't really know how to express myself verbally, or those types of things. So if those things are already taken care of with what you have, your tools, then whatever I'm teaching this child is going to take them to the next level and let them be successful.
That is the absolute truth. Absolute truth. 100%. 100%. When we feel understood and valued in any work environment, we walk in and we feel heard and understood and valued, we perform. We perform.
Yes,
and they will too. And again, it ripples out across the whole. We're not going to have the school shootings. We're not going to have the bullying. We're not, because when people have to look at each other face to face after you just posted that, and we're in the conversation station, and I look at you and I say, why would you do that? I thought you were my friend.
Yes.
It's real hard.
Yes,
it's real hard to look at somebody and talk garbage to them when you're right in front of their face. And consequently, then it ends up, you know, and then we have these grown children that are growing into adults that aren't road raging, that aren't, you know, shooting up places, that aren't joining gangs, that are making decisions for themselves, for their best, because they value themselves and they value their input and they value their conversation and they know that they matter. it's a ripple effect,
It
and
is. It is.
we
Oh,
have the power to do it. We
yeah,
have the
we
power.
have. We have. It's what we've always been doing, and just basically bringing it back to the forefront, as to
Yep.
what we need to do with the children and whatever like that. Heather, we can be on here for 2 more hours. Well, we're going to give it a break, but I have just enjoyed you. I wish you continue wishing you the best in what you're doing. Let me know about, I'm going to stay in touch so I'll know what those
Yes.
babies are doing and so forth. And I see this going beyond Nevada. I see it, we're just branching out because they're looking for something. They're looking for something. They have found out that the social emotional is good, but they really, if they don't, everybody don't buy into it,
Yep.
it just sort of lays there. It just sort of lays
Yep.
there, in other words, and we just know what happens in education is sometimes we get these titles and nobody know how to work the titles. Nobody know how to do what they're doing. And it just sort of just lays there. But we need
Yep.
actual hands-on.
Yeah, this is not a poster that you put up and, call it a day, that, oh, I should make better choices. Oh, okay. This is not a poster that we're putting up or a DVD we're putting in for 30 minutes and calling it a day. This is a culture of
Yes.
conversation. It's a culture where we are connected and we're in this together. So yes, absolutely.
I see that. I see it. Young lady, have a nice afternoon, and
Thank
we will be
you.
in touch. And I'm going to be sending you some gifts, okay?
Thank you so
You're
much. I
welcome.
so appreciate you.
Oh, I
So much
appreciate
love.
you too, girl. It's been, and this is not the end. We're going to be in touch.
Not the
We know
end.
exactly, so we can keep up with each other and support each other. That's what this is all about. Okay. All right.
Yes,
Have a great one,
absolutely.
Heather, and we have your information in the chat, and we're taking it from there. Have a great one. Thank you so much for coming on. Bye-bye.
Bye.